University used to be sold as a guarantee. You go in, work hard, graduate, and a stable future waits on the other side. For decades, that promise made sense because education was scarce, degrees were signals of skill, and employers used them as filters for opportunity. But today, the value of a university education is no longer what it used to be, not because learning has lost importance, but because the system around education has changed while the price and expectations have continued to rise. What many people are feeling right now isn't laziness or entitlement. It's the friction of an old model colliding with a new economy. The biggest shift is simple but uncomfortable. Degrees are no longer rare. When higher education expanded, it created access, but it also diluted the signaling power of a diploma. A degree that once separated candidates now often just puts you in the pile. Employers increasingly treat it as a baseline rather than a differentiator, which means the return on investment depends less on the credential itself and more on what you can actually do. At the same time, tuition costs have exploded, turning what was once an investment into a long-term financial burden for many graduates. The gap between what education promises and what it delivers has widened, and students feel it the moment they enter the job market. Another problem is that universities still optimize for theory while the economy increasingly rewards application. Many programs teach abstract knowledge without enough emphasis on how skills are used in real environments. Graduates often leave knowing concepts but lacking context, practical experience, or clarity on how those concepts translate into value. This creates a strange paradox where people are more educated than ever, yet feel underprepared, underpaid, and easily replaceable. The frustration isn't that learning is useless, it's that learning alone no longer guarantees leverage. Technology has also changed how skills are acquired. Information is no longer locked behind institutions. Online courses, open-source materials, boot camps, and real-world projects allow people to build skills faster, cheaper, and more flexibly than traditional programs. Employers are starting to recognize portfolios, experience, and adaptability over transcripts. This doesn't mean university has no value, but it does mean it no longer has a monopoly on education or opportunity. When alternatives exist, the cost of university becomes harder to justify unless it delivers something uniquely valuable. There's also the issue of timing. University delays entry into the workforce at a time when experience compounds faster than credentials. Many graduates enter their mid-20s with debt, limited savings, and little negotiating power, while peers who entered the workforce earlier may already have income momentum, skills, and networks. This doesn't make one path superior in every case, but it does mean the opportunity cost of university is higher than it used to be. 4 years out of the market is no longer neutral. It's a strategic decision with long-term consequences. The emotional cost matters too. Students are told that education is the safest path, so when outcomes fall short, they internalize the failure. They assume they chose the wrong major, didn't try hard enough, or simply missed something everyone else figured out. But the issue is structural, not personal. Universities are still marketed as pathways to stability in an economy that no longer offers stability by default. The system promises certainty while delivering volatility, and that mismatch creates anxiety, resentment, and burnout. This doesn't mean university is worthless. For certain fields, it remains essential. For others, it provides structure, time to explore, and social capital that can still matter. But its value is now conditional, not automatic. The return depends on the field, the cost, the connections built, and how intentionally the education is used. Going to university without a strategy is riskier than it used to be, not because education is bad, but because the margin for error is thinner. The real issue is that universities haven't adapted their value proposition. They still sell credentials in a world that increasingly rewards outcomes. They still emphasize prestige in a market that prioritizes speed and relevance. And they still price education as if its benefits are guaranteed, even though the burden of risk has shifted almost entirely onto students. Education used to protect people from uncertainty. Now, in many cases, it amplifies it. Another shift that's quietly changing the value of university is how companies are hiring and firing. More employers are moving towards skill-based hiring, where portfolios, practical tests, and real-world experience matter more than where someone went to school. In those environments, candidates who learned by doing often outperform those who learned primarily through theory. Some companies have also found that certain degree hires struggle early, not because they lack intelligence, but because academic success doesn't always translate into workplace habits like initiative, speed, ownership, or adaptability. When people spend years in systems that reward compliance, deadlines with extensions, and abstract performance metrics, the transition to results-driven work can be jarring. This has led some employers to become less patient with new graduates who expect training, structure, or upward movement without immediately creating value. It's not that university makes people lazy, but that it can create expectations misaligned with modern work, where output, learning speed, and accountability matter more than credentials. As a result, companies increasingly prioritize proof of skill over proof of education, because skills compound faster than titles in an economy that moves quickly and replaces roles without warning. What people are waking up to is not that education doesn't matter, but that it must be paired with adaptability, practical skills, and a clear understanding of how value is created. Learning is still powerful, but credentials alone are no longer armor. In today's economy, the most valuable education isn't just what you know, it's how quickly you can apply it, update it, and turn it into leverage. University isn't obsolete, but the blind faith in it is, and recognizing that difference may be one of the most important financial realizations of this generation.